Love doing the tastings. Tastings are probably my favorite thing, especially with a group of people that don't know much about tequila or, learning about a new brand. I love like that aspect of it because I think that's that teacher part of me. Love to be able to learn about things and then educate about it. So I think that's just kind of who I was born to be.
Hello and welcome to the Tequila Business Channel. My name is Adam Fuller, I'm your host, and my special guest for today is the lovely Lauren Castaño, who is a teacher and a bartender in the same very person. Hey Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Adam.
So tell us a little bit about yourself if you don't mind me asking, because definitely for someone like me, I'm very curious. Not sure if I probably explained
Yeah.
my mom used to be a teacher as well, but there's a huge difference. Now she's a pensioner, so she retired, but she never actually made it to any sort of bar unless she wanted to drink something. So how do you do both things, and how do you get to enjoy them?
Oh, yes. Well, I kind of feel like I have kind of not a crazy story, but a different story. And I never in a million years would have thought that I'd be where I am now. But I started bartending at the same bar in my early years of college. And I graduated with an education degree to be a teacher. And I wanted to change the world and make a huge difference with children. I've always just, really enjoyed being around kids. So I was an elementary educator for a good 10 years. And, I knew getting into the business of education and being a teacher, there wasn't a lot of money involved. I mean, I knew that going in, but it didn't really set in until like my first couple months, giving up a lot of my bar shifts to, work full time as a teacher that I really realized, oh my gosh, I am making so very little money. So basically, I just, always kept a few shifts a week just to kind of supplement my income with teaching. And plus, I really did enjoy being behind the bar. I enjoyed interacting with people. And, I've been in the industry for a very long time. And I love the whole aspect of customer service. I just, really enjoyed doing that. So I really didn't have a problem with it. But I had a solid run for 10 years. I got pregnant with my son, who is now 10. And after I'd had him, I just kind of was a little burned out from just, working so many hours. And I was just burned out. There's a lot to the education system, especially with teaching that, is just, it's a headache. And it makes it very difficult to actually do your job in the classroom and, for the children. So, anyway, I decided that it was a time in my life I really wanted to stay home with my son. And I wanted to, really enjoy those first, moments of his life and my family. And we made a decision that after my maternity leave was up, that I was going to go ahead and resign. And I went slowly back and, into picking up a couple shifts at the bar. And it was, at the beginning, it was sort of just a time just to kind of get out of the house, to earn a little bit of extra money and just be out of the house, but yeah, just the crazy thing that happened was that there at the time there were two locations, and the one location I was working in closed down, and I went to work at another location. And long story short, they have a whole system where they actually sell bottles behind the bar. So it's an agave bar, tequila and mezcal, primarily. And we sell bottles. We do bottle service, not in the sense of like high-end bars, like Miami style, not like that, like Vegas, nothing crazy like that. Just kind of fun where people come in, buy their own bottle, and they sit at the bar and they have a few, sips of their tequila and whatnot. But anyway, what ended up happening was being at this new location, required me to sell tequila in a whole new aspect than I was used to. It was a bigger bar. They had a lot more selection. And I knew right away that if I was going to actually sell bottles of tequila, then I needed to know a little bit more than the four tequilas I had been drinking, right? And at that time, I thought that I knew a lot about tequila. And I realized very shortly that I did not know anything. And, but I kind of ended up going down these rabbit holes of the agave world. And if you know what I mean, then you just know what I mean. It just can kind of engulf you into this world that's, very fascinating. I mean, agave is very fascinating. Um, Tequila, is so fascinating, but then you start learning about, mezcal, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that it's just very vast. But the whole point is, I became very passionate about tequila initially, and here I am. It's a big part of my life, and it's been a huge part of my life the last 10 years. So I just would have never had thought that I'd be sitting here today with all the things going on in my life that are revolved around tequila in this aspect. So it's
Yeah, I
very
can relate to
fascinating.
that. Actually, I can fully relate to that. First of all, fortunately, I had a mom, so she literally told me that I shouldn't ever become a teacher because it sucks the way that you said. I saw her like work her ass off, if I can say this, and no one really appreciated it because like, oh, there's so much free time for you. But yeah, not quite, because you go home and you have to correct all those exams and you have to prepare for the classes for the next day. So I understand, for example, all the stress, and I didn't even understand until in university I was taking like private classes, and then I was like, wow, like 6 hours in a row, and it's just so draining, having to focus on everything for it's like so long of a time. So I can really relate to you. Like, I think it's a tough job, and I think it's very underappreciated by of course the governments and many other people. And I can also relate to you in the sense that I also started with just kind of the half blind leading the blind almost. I came here to like set up a tequila tasting business in a of my apartment in Mexico. I was like saying like, okay, well, I just get started and learn a little bit. And as you're saying, there's lots of rabbit holes. Every time I went back to Jalisco to learn a little bit more, it was always like more and more. And sometimes like, wow, there's just such a ton of things and like such a based information that I think I still keep learning. I mean, I'm not sure if you did the G4 course that we have with Sean. Like, been to the G distillery with Philip, I don't know how many times, and I listened to him saying like, "Oh, dude, I didn't realize that." So even after
Yeah,
8 years or something, we did, I can still learn, and I actually really appreciate this journey like you
agree.
do. Right?
Yeah.
So, where does your love of tequila? So, yeah, like, was there a moment? So you think working in an agave-centric bar, that is really where your love for tequila is coming from, or do you have some other memories or other things that drove you to love tequila so much in agave spirits?
Well, I definitely think that just being, behind the bar, you're kind of a sales, salesperson for all those brands that you kind of stand right in front of, right? And people want to know, well, so what should I drink? Especially if you are, your bar is centered around agave spirits, tequila. If you have more than 10 brands on the back bar, then you need to be able to, make suggestions, or, maybe there's some a brand that the owner wants you to push out, move out of the way. So
Okay.
you kind of have to know a little bit about everything. And then people want to know, like, what should I drink? Or I like this. What can you suggest? But I just know that, like, I've always been kind of a bookworm, and kind of like in the sense that, like, if I want to do something and I want to know about it, I kind of put my all into it. And that's just where I landed in this tequila world. It's just that I just wanted to know more. I just could not get enough. And then in the last, few years, I've had the experience of being able to visit, Jalisco, and really get an idea of how tequila is made. And that's really opened up my world, and, kind of solidified everything that, I've been learning about it. When you read about it and you study about it, but then you actually go and experience it and actually do it, it kind of pulls it all together. And it's complicated in some ways. I mean,
Yeah.
fermentation is, very, a very complex, part of the process, a very important part of the process. Distillation is extremely important. Farming, when is it time to, harvest? the whole fluctuation of them, there being a lot of agave to there not being any agave, those, all these things that just affect, every part of the process. And, but to answer your question, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's,
No worries.
yeah, it
I
just,
see.
that's pretty much where that, that passion was born. It
Mhm.
just, learning about, tequila, and especially nowadays, when I think about what I used to drink and, thought was acceptable to drink, or, kind of thing. And then you learn about additives, and then you learn about, how, people can change their tequila, and, so then that's a whole new world. So like, that's, it never ends. There's always something to know,
I
um,
agree.
in the spirit world. Yes.
I definitely agree. And of course, you said you work in like an agave-centric bar, so I would have to assume that most of those expressions are very much selected and like roughly how much is the percentage there you work, which is like a traditional, authentic expressions of these spirits. What would you say?
Well, that's probably the most difficult.
Uh,
First of all, I don't own the bar, so
okay,
if it were up to me, there'd be a certain, I'd probably do things a little differently. But
fair enough.
at the end of the day, my job is to sell anything that's on the shelf, right? You know,
Yeah, of
um,
course.
and they also too. I just had this interview with someone else, and we were talking about like, I'm one person that is very, very passionate about my job there, the bar there, agave spirits. The other two bartenders, they not that they don't care about the bar. That's not at all what I mean. But are they passionate about tequila? No, not really.
Mm.
Do they have a repertoire of things they can sell? And yes, but at the end of the day, if someone comes and asks for if they want you know one of those tall bottles that sit on the shelf that's very sweet that I probably wouldn't drink if they want it. At the end of the day, it's here's the tequila, where I would try to be like, hey, have you heard of this brand? It's better quality, etc. So at the end of the day, I've tried to curate a very good selection at the bar of traditionally quality made tequilas, and I have a certain section that I have everything that I've really, put in place
That-
there. And then, there's a small section of things that just I don't recommend at all, but I have to have on the shelf.
You said that you wish that it would be 100% of the selection that you curate. Is that what you said? Sorry.
I mean, yeah, I think it would be really cool to run a bar that's like 100% like additive free tequilas or tequilas. I've gotten to like now I even hate using that word 100% additive free, because if you ask people like, Felipe or Carlos Camarena, like, those were not words in their vocabulary. They just
No.
made really good quality traditional tequila, right?
You made me feel great because I'm also not a huge
Yeah.
advocate of using additive free because exactly what you're saying. None of the producers that you'll ever meet, and that's a really great statement that you're doing. I just want to emphasize this. So none of the producers, Carlos Camarena, Felipe Camarena, Sergio Vivanco, none of these guys, or Chava Gonzalez,
Mm-hmm.
no one is ever going to tell you that my tequila is additive free. If you go to their websites, they have nothing in there. They do want to be part of this because they have a lot of fans who are like, hey, I want you to be part of this project. So like, yeah, sure. I mean, they're Mexicans. I think Mexican people are cool because that's why I love this country so much. They're so supportive, whatever you do. But I agree, it's an American term, and I think it can be sort of misleading because most of the time when even you use the word or someone uses the word additive free, there is like maybe 10, 15, or 20 tequilas that we refer to, right?
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
definitely not like 100 and something. And I know a few. My favorite example is Casaloy, for example. I don't even know what those guys are doing on any sort of list as being promoted, as if it's great to make and I got vodka, as they say, right? Because literally a diffuser in column stills without additives is hand
Right.
sanitizer diluted. And I don't see any
Right. Yes.
consumer who would find value in consuming that. That's just my honest opinion. That's what I was asking. It's kind of interesting to see from all the interviews that I was doing. that people are a little bit kind of shy into, like, well, we do sell some commercial tequila as well, which of course you do. I mean, like, that's 95% of the market, and people come in and they want to get a tequila. Then if you say, like, hey, we only have, I don't know, Don Fulano, Cascaín, and whatever, they're like, well, I have never heard of them. I just want my, I don't know, Castaños or Don Julio. And you know what? I think these customers are best served. Well, okay, that's what you want. Here you go. Because, like, if I want to listen to, I don't know, Foo Fighters today, and you say, well, why don't you listen to this band that I've heard? I'm like, well, no, thanks. I like Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
With Patrick Timmons. And, like, sure, maybe over time, I may transition into something, I don't know, I'm going to listen to Metallica or something heavier, even, some of these Nordic metal bands or something, or you can even go to classical or the 60s or whatever. But I think the idea is that, and you nailed it very well, thanks for mentioning, is that, that's the demand, and just to use the words properly, right? And we can help and assist these people a lot more. So I appreciate that you said this, actually.
Well, it kind of makes me think about the real thing here is about the education, to it. I just did a tasting where it was additives versus additive-free tequilas, and a blind tasting, really seeing who could pick out, the difference. And, I think, to me, at this point of the game, it's about, educating people about quality traditional tequilas. What does tequila really taste like? And, really knowing what the difference is. And just like myself, I had to train my own palate. I didn't always go for these, I didn't always drink Blancos or go for tequilas that I drink now. And, so you have to kind of look at how your own experience has evolved in drinking agave spirits. I mean, I remember the first time I ever had a mezcal. It was not something that I was, like, enthused about at all, but again, something that over time you just, you train your palate, you taste, spirit after spirit, you learn, the complexity of all these different agaves, and you grow an appreciation for it, for sure.
Yeah, and to be fair with you, I have to refer back to an earlier podcast. This is why we do these things, so we can talk about things that on social media no one's talking about. So it's kind of like, like a live concert. There's lots of aromas, lots of flavors, and especially in those really awesome tequilas that you refer to, that are traditionally produced, and many of them with, like, wild yeast, like, ambient yeast, which is just some of the best expressions. They're like the one-off. Like, a lot of people have fortaleza, like, oh, what's your batch number? Because they know that every batch they take is going to be very different, because they literally add no yeast. And that's
it's so true. I agree.
And it's great that you mentioned that, and that's why it's like, okay, when you taste another batch, like, you may not even be able to guess it's Fortaleza or some of the other guys, right?
Right. But I think that there is a space to really help others to understand, I mean, because leading into what you just said too about, like, that particular tequila that uses a diffuser and a column still, but is an additive free tequila. I mean, I didn't taste it, but I knew several people that were on that trip that all said they basically left their bottles behind. They didn't care to ever, connect with that tequila. It was horrible, so there's a good, that's a perfect example of why people do add additives to the tequila, right? It's because of that exact reason,
Yeah.
And what we've learned too is that, when it comes to making tequila, there's nothing rushed about it. It is a slow process. You want a good tequila, you have to be patient. And which also is kind of, I like the hunt. I kind of like when my reps text me and they say, G4 108's in, you're allocated this many bottles. Do you want them? Yes, I want them. Fortaleza is in. Would you like them? Yes. It just makes it, you appreciate it more, because that it's legit. Just, it takes time to make, it's such an amazing tequila.
I agree. And then the taste is going to be in there undisputably. So if you tasted just even, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 tequilas, I think everyone should be able to pick out the differences, right? I mean, even it's so cool. I do a lot of tastings, and by the end of the tasting, people are like, "Oh, this is the one that it's kind of a funny taste." And I'm like, "Yeah, probably you're right." And like, "Hey, I'm gonna
Yes.
bring this tequila." And well, there's a tequila from a very well-known traditional producer. I can't tell his name because it's not really good for them. But they do make tequilas for their clients, like the maquila or contract labels. And one of these tequilas, I think it's from my favorite, Tequila, and it tasted like bubble gum. It was like a Castaño extraño, so everything was wrong with it. And it tastes like
Yeah.
bubble gum. And I'm like, well, I kind of, I don't dislike this flavor, but probably, just chew it or something, and it was kind of weird in the spirit. But as I was saying, you got to keep the lights on, and if someone likes bubblegum flavored tequila and they're willing to pay $200 for it, like it's kind of like Lamborghini or Ferrari. I mean, I wouldn't buy them, but I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There is a person. Hay una pareja, or like something like that's how they say. De Viva Mexico. My favorite is like that's what they say. Like every tequila, cada tequila tiene una pareja. So every tequila has a pair, like a matching. There's a person who will just appreciate that. Maybe it's not you.
Agree. And that's probably too what I also have to remind myself being behind the bar and as a bartender is that there is a space for every tequila. There's a space for every person. It's just like, I don't like every person walking through the door, but you're never going to know that. There's certain customers I really enjoy waiting on. There's some that I can't stand, but I have to be, smile no matter what. Right. So it's the same thing with the tequilas. Oh my gosh. It's difficult at times because I sometimes at times wear my emotions on my sleeve. So, I'm very sarcastic and dry sometimes at the bar. So, I don't know. Sometimes I'm able to just, I don't know, laugh about certain things, but it's tough at times, to not want to like just scream at someone that they're just stupid, but you can't do that. So, because there are just some, but not even stupid people, just people that are just rude and don't have, the common courtesy to say please and thank you and can I or may I or, and I guess those are the things that bother me the most. I'm from a state. I was born and raised in North Carolina, and I grew up. I went to oh my gosh, etiquette school when I was in middle school. My mom sent me to 2 years to learn how to, etiquette. And I just feel like sometimes common courtesy, just people are missing those just common tools in their life. I don't understand, especially being in South Florida where I live now. It's very transient. There's a lot of different groups of people and, people forget just to smile at someone, how are you?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And by the way, do those people come back? So because I also have tasting and sometimes fortunately, most of the time my guests are incredibly good. Sometimes I have some guests who are like, well, whatever, but they never come back. So they're always the good people that are coming back because I made some impression and it's probably a good one. Do those people come back, or is it always new people?
Well, we have such a good local base of guests. So a lot of our guests are repeat guests, and probably the most valuable lesson I've learned is to just kill people with kindness. Because no matter what or how I think they act, if I continue to be kind to them every single time they come in, I swear some of these people I'm still waiting on years later. And then we can share a story and talk about how, maybe we didn't like each other at all, or maybe but whatever. I'm just saying that, that has been the biggest motto I've had to learn is that you just, at the end of the day, they're just kind of, you have to brush it off and just nothing is personal, right? But that's still a lesson that, that even I still struggle with, the biggest thing behind the bar is just you have to really toughen your skin up. You have to really be able just to take a multitude of, the way that people treat you. I mean, social media the same way. There's not. So yeah.
I know. And it's so funny. It's so great that you mentioned these things because no one's talking about this, but I think it's really important that, for example, like social media or just people's behavior. Like I think the best way is just to shrug it off and then don't care or don't worry so much about this, and especially online. I think because it's even easier. Because for people like who goes to the store, there is a certain physical movement, right? You got to get out of the bed and, get into the car and go to the place. But especially on social media, it's just like, I don't like this. I'm just going to, it's a 10 second and my frustration is away. And of course, for everything like that, there's a frustrated person. And
Yeah,
actually,
agreed.
lately I've seen, I actually started to unfollow a lot of people because I started seeing like, people like going after brands and like bashing stuff and like earning reputation through that. And I understand why people do it. It's just that like, I don't want that in my life. I mean, I like good promotion. That's what I've been always doing, to be fair. And I even learned to better educate people by actually bringing a crappy tequila, or I wouldn't say even a crappy tequila. The best tequila for $10 is what I bring to the tasting, which I regard it here in Mexico as the Campo Azul Selecto, the big 1 liter bottle you can get here, which for $10, it's a wonderful spirit. Not just this tequila. I don't think I've tasted a better spirit for that money. Like, it's like 150 pesos. Like, it's less than $10. It's like a big liter. So if you think about the cost, I don't think anyone would expect it to be great. But there were the makers of Castaños, of like, they managed Hermana, the Glass Azul, all these big brands. And I can tell a story. Because without this story, people cannot relate. They don't know these brands that you talk about or I talk about. Like, they have no idea. But they know, okay, so this brand represents that commercial part of the industry. And this is $10. They do understand that that $10 liquid potentially would end up in a big brand and will be commercialized. And then maybe they're not going to like some of the expressions that I bring because it's a personal taste. But then they're going to just have a lot more, like a better time. And I don't say that these are bad. I don't say like, you shouldn't drink whatever you're drinking because they will. It's not my thing to judge anyone's palate. But if there's like this 10% that will change their mind and maybe, drink some of this stuff, it's great. But if they don't, like, it's just, I just describe what I like and I'm not going to have that expectation. And the same thing, with music as well or anything else that I do. This is what I like. And if you like it, it's great. If you don't, it's also great. You know why? Because then the price is gonna, they're gonna blow up, and then you will have your allotment of Fortaleza, and then we're not gonna get into trouble, right?
Yes.
Or what? And well, for these things, but I appreciate that, and I remember one of my former bar owner people in Hungary, because I'm from Hungary. And there's like, well, if you have a problem with the customer, you just talk to the fridge. Because you don't tell them that. So it's kind of, in Hungary, it's a different way, but I love your way of just being kind and just understand everyone. Because to be fair, I think that was part of G4's success as well. And I had a chat with Sean the other week because this is why it's so great. And he also mentioned that he's like the emotional connection with the customer. Just he wanted, like he's like a solid rock. Like, he's not gonna get you anything that he thinks. If I'm stupid or something, like, oh, whatever. He's just really nice and like, what does this guy want? And just deliver it. And that's it. And I think that's the right way, by the way, that you do it, Lauren. Just trying to reinforce it that kill with kindness. I love that.
Yeah. Or I just come home and talk about everybody to my husband. So.
Okay, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's yeah. Well, sometimes he'll be like, "All right, is there anything else we can talk about besides the bar, besides tequila?" I'm like, "Oh, I guess there are other things we could talk about, but
or let's just not talk." That's fine.
Yeah.
This show's not for kids. So kids, if you're for some reason you're still here, go somewhere else. At least 18 plus, 21 plus. just joking. But I have the same issue here. So obviously, my wife and is really well involved. She's helping with a lot of the videos and stuff, but she's not like a huge tequila fan, so she can be overwhelmed. Probably your husband too, right?
Yeah, well, because sometimes when your whole world revolves around these things, and you want to decompress, you go to your first person, and for me, obviously it's my husband, and he's always willing to listen and even give advice, and he's a really big support in my life for all these things, But he jokes with me, like there's got to be something else that we can talk about, So
Sure.
It's just funny.
I totally understand you. And I wanted to also ask Lauren, are you by any chance like a brand ambassador to some of the brands that you like? Because you do have a certain social media presence, I would believe. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I do
Yeah,
believe.
so I actually do. I do a lot of what do you call it? Independent work with quite a few brands, actually. I do tastings all over town with a particular brand. I'm going to be in New York for BCB next week with Campo Azul 1940. I'll be with them. So I do things all over, I was in Chicago just recently with El Tequilano. So I do support a lot of different brands, but I'm very selective about, who I select, and I'm not married to any brand. So it kind of gives me the opportunity to be able to work with a number of brands and kind of, decide where and what and how I want to spend my time doing those things. Right. So, but yes, I am, a brand ambassador for a few. But I'm not married to any one brand.
Yeah, I
So
see what you mean. Of course. I mean, why would you? By the way, I mean, um, that would be literally working for the particular brand, which is a different story. And I assume that you really love what you do, and this kind of will also let you balance your work life as well, right? Better.
yes, and I'm not opposed to, I've had a couple offers in the past, to do bigger and better things, or not. That's not the right. I want to say better, but just, to be at a, position and with a company as far as a brand goes. But I just, I'm still kind of trying to figure out. I have my hands in a lot of different things. And I kind of enjoy it, all aspects of it. I make some content, and create things on Instagram that I enjoy doing, and then I love doing the tastings. Tastings are probably my favorite thing, especially with a group of people that don't know much about tequila or learning about a new brand. I love like that aspect of it because I think that's that teacher part of me. Um, I love to be able to learn about things and then educate about it, So I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of who I was born to be. So, but
Fair enough. And I realized that I forgot to ask you, like, what's your strategy? So, like, imagine a situation when someone is coming from the other end, like, there's an average consumer, they'd be consuming whatever sort of tequilas, probably one of the commercial ones, and you have this mission to try and explain that there are something else in the table. How would you go around
yeah,
that if you don't mind sharing?
yeah, not at all. One of my favorite things to do is to actually take two bottles and let people try the difference or even smell the difference. If you take I guess we can mention brands here. I guess that's okay to talk about brands.
Sure.
Okay. But one of the best experiments that I do at a bar is like if you take a bottle of Casamigos Reposado and you compare it to a bottle, let's say a Fortaleza Reposado, you can like smell the difference, right there in the bottle, right? So it's about using people's senses to really get them, to explore the tequila, and not just tasting it. But I think it's important to give them that sensual or that to be able to use their senses to understand it, but also to give them background. And I can say that, for instance, I've never been to Casamigos Distillery. I don't know how. You know, I can read and kind of think about how I know they make their tequila, but I can tell you right now, I know how Fortaleza makes their tequila. I know how Adonacio makes their tequila. G4, because I have those experiences. And usually a lot of times I can show pictures from my phone and say, this is how they do this. And this is what they do that. And people love a story about a brand. I know, for me behind the bar, I can sell almost any tequila back there, especially if I have a story about the brand. If I have a picture that I can say, yeah, this is the guy that makes it, or, um, I can say that this is me in the field working, for this brand. It's like people like that. They like to know that there's a connection, and they also like to support, smaller traditional brands too. So there are those people. And there's some tequilas that I'm not crazy about, but they're a better quality made than some of the more traditionals that people like. So, it's just being able to, again, know a little bit about every tequila and know about like what the pros are, or they're good points, and how to sell anything in that aspect, if that makes sense. It's like try to find the best thing in every tequila. Does that make sense? Like you do like the
Yeah,
best qualities in someone. Like like if you try
I
to find a
agree.
good quality in every tequila, especially in a sales position, then you're more likely to sell those tequilas again. Because I mean, not everybody has my palate too. Because some people will ask me, Lauren, what's your favorite tequila? Because that's the one I want to buy. And then meanwhile, they've never, that might scare someone. I don't, what
I
I'm
know
saying? Like,
exactly. I know exactly what you're saying, and you remember my example, right? When I talk about Campo Azul Selecto, right? People are like, "Oh, that's crap," and I'm like, "Dude, like this is the best tequila for $10. It's a positive thing to say,
yeah,
right?" Or these are the producers of these amazing brands. I'm not going to say like these crappy brands like everybody else, because those are some of the most successful tequila brands in the world, and you can say that. Like if you say Castaño
yeah,
is one of the most successful tequila brand in the world, it's actually true. Now, having
it's
said
true.
that,
Hmm.
yeah, right. And you don't have to say like, oh, you don't drink this or you're a bad person if you drink this. It's kind of like, I don't like the stick and carrot kind of thing. Like, hey, if you drink that, it's amazing. You found tequila, probably thanks to this brand, right? And then you're here. We can have this conversation. Like, we can have this conversation with you, Lauren, because if it was only about the brands that we kind of both love and cherish in a sense, then we would need to meet in Arandas and then go to the local
Yeah,
bar and get those brands, because without the big brands, there is no international demand for them at all. As
very
you
true.
probably know, a lot of people don't know this. Like, if you think there are some local beverages, even in my home country, we produce Palinka. No one knows about Palinka because we don't have big brands. We have very strict high level quality control. We don't allow our own beverage to compete at every price range with other products. The same way as Pisco don't have it. Shingani from Bolivia. There's lots of different spirits in the world that just don't know about, because we don't have these brands and attention actually that the celebrities bring to the table, right? Because
Right.
when The Rock is onto something, people are like, oh, people listen to it, and like, oh, tequila is sexy, tequila is cool, and if our favorite tequila producers want to charge more, they can probably charge more just because we have that. Otherwise, if no one was interested, there's no what we say demand. Because this is a business channel, sorry, you talk about these things. So like, there's supply and demand in the end of the day, and the capitalism, as we say, that we all enjoy, and freedom of speech and freedom of choice. And this is I love these things, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's very true. It's a good point. Yeah.
And to be fair with you, the other thing is that what I've discovered, and correct me if it's wrong where you live, is that in most of the places or bars in the US, especially, the tequila goes into a cocktail in usually over 80% of the time. Even in agave-centric places. Is that what's going on with you guys? Well, I would assume in the bar section.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, because you're right. I mean, and we're in a time where like people are really after those craft, cocktails. That's that's really what's big right now. My bar, on the other hand, is very. I like to call it my favorite Mexican dive bar. It's like a little cantina. We specialize more in sipping agave spirits than we do craft cocktails. I developed a menu for them where I did include some, elevated cocktails to kind of appease a new crowd, because you want to try to please, everyone there. But the majority of our drinkers are, they just want to sip it or on the rocks. And so that's the way that my bar works,
Sure.
which I love. That's what I love about it too. I'm not, drowning in the well, making 10 cocktails with 10 ingredients each, which I love. That's just not my thing. So,
Okay.
um,
Nice.
but, but with all respect, because that's a very hard job to do, so not to say that I'm not busy in the service while making drinks. I am sometimes, but I'm just saying that we're more of a bar that's really dedicated to, just sipping tequila, mezcal. We have some sotos and some bacanars as well. So
And so you guys that are dedicated to the sipping part, would you mind sharing me like around how much of the tequila goes into cocktails where you even dedicate yourself to kind of let people consuming meat, right?
Yeah, I
What's your
mean,
percentage, more or less?
and I'm talking about specifically at the bar, like
Yes,
our
correct.
bar customers, they're more because we do the bottle service. So everyone's very, interested in getting their own bottle and being part of that, you know, ambiance that we've created with, having your own bottle. But we do we do have margaritas, we have cocktails, we have tequila old fashions, we have a couple, a few cocktails that are, specific, tequila, mezcal centered. It's just that our bar is more bigger is, for like, hey, Lauren, what's new on the shelf? Or, I want to try something new, they
Okay.
may say.
I see what you mean. Okay, so particularly people who
Yeah.
sit at the bar, they're like gonna be okay. What's your best stuff, or what's your
Yeah.
new? What you recommend?
Yes, or, or do I do get those people that are like, can you make me something different?
Mhm.
What would you drink? And you just, you come up with something, that you think they would enjoy with a nice tequila.
So what you're saying is that overall, in the restaurant or bar, there's still a heavy cocktail kind of priority for people. But when they sit in the bar and they kind of take their time, it's going to be more likely that they're going to try these expressions needed, right?
Yes, they're more about trying to enjoy the actual spirit,
Mhm.
and more than anything, we make more margaritas than anything. That's pretty much our number one seller.
And which
Um,
tequila, if you don't mind me asking, what's your cocktail tequila particular?
my my favorite one,
Well,
like that
yeah,
I
but
like to drink.
or do you allow the guests to use whatever tequila they want with the cocktail, or how do you guys work?
Oh no, so we have in our cocktail list, we have quite a few brands that are on the menu. But a lot of times people will be like, Lauren, what would you drink? And I love like a mezcal Negroni or a tequila old fashioned. I think that you can still have the essence of the spirit and still enjoy a nice cocktail. So those are some things that I always suggest. Anything spicy is in right now,
Mm-hmm.
and tahine. Like everybody loves tahine, wants tahine on their cocktail. So
Nice. Okay, interesting.
yeah,
Didn't know. Thanks for telling
our
me.
coffee.
Coffee,
Yeah, coffee is big right now.
tea.
So not so much in my bar
Okay.
tea, but yeah, I'm sure somewhere.
Actually, I was in Japan just last year, and it was an amazing tea cocktail. But of course, it's an Asian culture, so obviously tea is from there. So I would imagine it would be
No, I've
bigger
definitely
there.
seen that.
Wow.
I've definitely seen some tea cocktails. The matcha, like I worked in a cocktail bar and they had some insane drinks and there was a lot of matcha. They used
Matcha.
matcha, yeah, and boba. They had a boba tea cocktail. Um, so, but that was a different time in my life.
I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Thanks for telling us all of that. And I actually just wanted to go for it in a way that, not sure if you remember, but the first time that we actually physically met was when you were doing your first tour, I believe, to Jalisco. You brought a couple of people as well to Tequila Ocho. I just want to
Yes.
want to ask you, like, how did it go, and how you decide to become? So, did you do tours now? Is it something that you offer as well, or?
Yes, I do actually. So that was my first tour, and it kind of just randomly happened. I met this couple in my bar, and they were getting married, and they were doing a very intimate wedding setting in Key Largo. And within 10 minutes, we just kind of connected. And the guy, David, he was really into tequilas, and I had just gotten back from Jalisco, so we were talking about this and that and this and they just were like, hey, will you come do a tequila tasting at our wedding? And I was like, yeah, of course. So we coordinated that. I did the tasting at the wedding, and then speed up. We're at Christmas time, and she wants to give, her husband, he's always wanted to go to Jalisco. So she comes to me and she's like, can you build us an itinerary? So I did that. And then she gives it to him. And then like a month later, they come to me and they're like, well, what if we paid you to take us? And I was like, yes, I can do
Yeah.
that. So it was a win-win situation. And it was a great experience. So, it was six of us all together, or three couples. And all the people that I know in Mexico and all the connections that I've made over the years really came through and really gave them a very, special experience. So that was what was really cool about it, just to really see how, these relationships that I've built in this community, have really played out. And, I was just really grateful to see, and they had such a wonderful time. But yes, I'm actually, I've built quite a few itineraries since then for people. And what's always kind of cool is that when I visit, I like to visit new restaurants and new places, because obviously I want to be able to recommend these places. And there's some great, bars and great restaurants and great, brands to experience, in Jalisco, in so
Yeah,
many parts. And then there's so many, it's just a great place to visit, I think.
100%
But
agree,
that,
especially if,
but, but what a small world that was, that
yeah,
I connected with you there. And then, I don't know if you know, I think, yeah, you were there. Macaulay from How Much
yes, correct.
Jaguar was there at the same tasting. So that
Yeah,
was the first time I'd met him there too. And the first time I tasted his product, because he brought it out for us. But
yeah,
yeah,
nice. Yeah, I
so
remember. That was
just a
fun. That was
small
a fun
world.
tasting. And then it was more.
Yes, yeah, it was. But yes, I am doing that. A little bit. I've started diving into that, and I'm also working with a travel guide that's kind of helping me do more of that. So
You're still going to go and organize it, or be with the group. It's just that you hire someone to just help you organize the things for you, right? Because you don't seem to.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you even juggle all of these things. To be fair with you, because you do
Oh,
your bar shifts, you do like these independent brand kind of consultants and everything, and then doing the trips to Husky. It must be a lot of pressure and time, right?
yes, I am super busy. My husband just said to me this weekend, "I think you're spreading yourself too thinly," and I'm like, "No, I can do it all." No, I mean, I'm super busy. I have kind of cut back at the bar. I love the bar there. They're my family. But eventually I do kind of want to step away. I had an injury last year on my back, and,
Oh,
bartending is very straining on your body. And, I'm not in my peak years so much anymore. So,
come on,
so
come on.
the, but these are all things that, I'm considering right now, but I am trying to kind of move away from the bar area. Yes. So,
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I
but
understand that.
yeah. So, but yes, I'm still organizing. I do more like where I build itineraries for people. I'm working on a group right now, a group of 10. I'm not going with them though. I'm just building it for them and kind of just setting it up. So basically all they do is show up. They show up at a certain time, and the driver and everybody is from start to end is there for them. So
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So actually, now you started to do it as a business. That's what we that what we need. So you can actually pull these things together.
yes,
I'm super happy
yes,
for you.
exactly. Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
That's all right. And that's kind of like one of the final things that we usually discuss here. And I especially want to know your opinion, because you have this background as a teacher, and we already talked a lot about the importance of education here. So I usually want to ask, like, what do you think? How important is education in the tequila world in general? What do you think about that? Is there something missing that could be better? And then just on a scale of 10, how would you rate it? Like education, consumer education, tequila education. How important do you think it is?
I mean, for me, in my honest opinion, I would say, a 10, the highest. I think education is extremely important, because there's a lot of misconceptions, about a lot of things. And I think education is key to understanding these things. I'm sure I've said things past that were maybe not correct or as correct. And I don't know everything. I've had people call me the expert. I'm like, no, I'm not an expert. I just, I really am passionate about it. And I think that education is important. And, I want to know as much as I can. And, and that's part of the reason why I signed up for your classes, because, you know, again, you think you know something until you start actually reading about it and studying it. And studying it, is completely different. And I think is extremely important.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, thank you twice in a sense. Thanks for your answer. And thanks for signing up. And I hope we could, help you in a few things with the class. Obviously, that is part of the reason why we're doing it in the first place, to try and kind of help get some more proper information, because I can relate to you in this as well. And when I started out, half the information I was getting was wrong, or just listening to some people, and I always assume that everyone's doing the due diligence as really strictly as I do, and I had to realize that that's just not the case. And sometimes I appreciate, sometimes there's just even a business interest into to say something about a certain thing. The same way, obviously, like the big brands are going to have a certain narration that that every tequila is made in a magical way, and they sort of authentic traditional processes, right? And then the small brands, they're like, well, we have this other magical world, and the truth is somewhere, usually in between. And there's the Norma, and there are these amazing producers that just tells us their stories, which later you can just go to. It's so interesting and important that people to know. And it's so great. I'm so grateful that you do these tours, that people can just go and visit these distilleries and hear and listen firsthand. Because whenever I speak about it, or you yourself, or anyone, we already kind of do a little bit of a translation, probably. I mean, first of all, they speak in Spanish, we're speaking English, and it's a different culture as well. But if you can really experience it firsthand, that's a very much different experience than if you just listen to whatever there is on the internet, or just what's the right thing to say sometimes, or the right thing to do. And I so much appreciate your honesty. It's so cool to have someone like you, like, I think like this, like that, and this is basically why we're doing this whole podcast, so that people can probably listen in and get a little bit more of the real life, because you do work within the industry. You face the customers every day, literally. And I also wanted to ask, and I was actually really curious about something, and I'm not sure, because you said that you work in like the part of the bar where you sell the balls. Do you get tips for your work, or how does it work?
Yeah, so they're not required to tip,
Okay,
on the bottle, and
sure.
they obviously are paying a markup of the bottle, right? They're not
Hmm.
gonna pay what our cost is. They're gonna
Sure.
pay, a premium price for the bottle.
Hmm.
So a lot of people are very generous, and they do tip on that. Some don't, but I would say that probably 95% of our customers that buy bottles do tip us really nicely. Um, so yeah.
And what I wanted to ask, relating to that as well, because you said that you actually had a huge journey, right? Like becoming better at this, like I did, like everyone else. And did you notice a certain trend that, as you got to know more and more about tequila, that the tips just got more generous, or a little bit, is there something that you noticed? Do you think it's true, actually?
Yes, I 100%. I feel like behind the bar, like people really want to listen to me and want to know what I have to say, want to know where I'm going, where I've been, what brand am I talking about? Hey, Lauren, what are you selling now? They're very curious, and I love to be able to talk about it. I love to be able to talk about brands. Um, and be able to talk about what I'm doing. I was just at a festival in Miami this past weekend on Friday night, and I was surrounded by some really, small crafted tequila brands that are part of this movement, right? And then, so I love to be able to talk about those brands. And then at the same token, I was surrounded by some that are still like leading and the demand in the industry, and really watching how these guests, these consumers will flock to those tables and just skip me altogether and not even want to hear what I have to say. I mean, that's still a big part of what this is about. But yeah, I love sharing this stuff, and I do almost 100% agree with you that the more that I really crafted myself behind the bar to really curate an experience. Like, because when someone sits down, like I really want to just give them this tequila experience, that they've may never have experienced before. And I think people really appreciate that. And that's what I'm trying to do on the side. My side business is I really enjoy curating those experiences with people that give them a little bit more knowledge about the craft of tequila, and the magic, part that you said of it, just the essence of what people don't even realize, how special the spirit really is.
Thank you. I think this is the most wonderful note to even end this conversation on, if you agree, coming from your heart. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being my guest and sharing this time with me.
Yes, it's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And of course, if you want to reach out to Lauren, she's got social media, Loving Tequila, right? Instagram, you're probably everywhere, even Facebook, or you can find her if you want to get a tour. If you just want to listen to more of her charming personality. And as this being the final note, thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. This was the Tequila Business Media Channel. I guest Lauren Castaño. You have a wonderful night and see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.